It's funny, isn't it? How life can be perfectly ordinary one moment and then, in the blink of an eye, turn into a complete and utter nightmare. My name is Alaric, and until a few months ago I thought I had it all. A loving wife, a comfortable home in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado, and a fulfilling career as a software engineer. I was 46 years old, and I genuinely believed I was living the dream. My wife, Imogen, was the kind of woman who could light up a room with her smile. We'd been together for 15 years, married for 12, and I still felt that familiar flutter in my chest whenever she walked in. She worked as a marketing manager for a local firm, a job she was passionate about, and we always made sure to support each other's ambitions. We had our routines, of course. Saturday mornings were for brunch at our favorite diner, followed by a trip to the farmer's market. Sundays were reserved for family time, either visiting my parents or her sister and her kids. Our life wasn't particularly exciting, but it was comfortable, predictable, and filled with love. Or so I thought. The first crack in the facade appeared subtly, almost imperceptibly. Imogen started spending more time on her phone, often late into the night. She'd claim she was catching up on work emails or chatting with friends, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She became more distant, less affectionate. Our conversations felt forced and our intimacy dwindled to almost nothing. I tried to talk to her about it, but she brushed off my concerns. "You're just imagining things, Alaric," she'd say, her eyes darting away. "I've been stressed at work, that's all, don't worry about it." But I couldn't help but worry. I knew my wife and I knew something was wrong. The real turning point came about 3 months ago. Imogen announced that she was going on a girls' trip to Las Vegas with some of her colleagues from work. I didn't think much of it at the time. She'd gone on similar trips before, and I always encouraged her to take time for herself. "Have fun," I told her as I dropped her off at the airport. "Be safe, and don't do anything I wouldn't do." She laughed and promised she wouldn't. But as the days went by, a nagging feeling of unease grew stronger. I tried to push it aside, telling myself I was being paranoid, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I started noticing little things: a lingering scent of a cologne that wasn't mine, a new lipstick in her purse that I hadn't seen before, a receipt for an expensive hotel that didn't match the one she'd told me about. Then came the phone call. It was late one night, and I was already in bed when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered it anyway. "Hello," I said, my voice groggy with sleep. There was a long pause, and then a woman's voice, hesitant and trembling, spoke. "Is this Alaric?" she asked. "Yes, this is he. Who is this?" "My name is Brianna," she said. "I need to tell you something about Imogen." My heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Imogen, she's been having an affair," Brianna said. "With your brother, Quentin." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My brother, Quentin. It couldn't be true. Quentin was my best friend, my confidant, the person I trusted more than anyone else in the world. The idea that he would betray me like this was simply incomprehensible. "I don't believe you," I said, my voice shaking. "You're lying." "I wish I was," Brianna said, "but it's true. They've been seeing each other for months. I work with Imogen and I've seen them together. I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. You deserve to know." I hung up the phone, my mind reeling. I wanted to dismiss it as a cruel prank, a malicious lie, but deep down I knew Brianna was telling the truth. The pieces of the puzzle suddenly fell into place: Imogen's strange behavior, her secrecy, the subtle changes in her demeanor. It all made sense now, in the most horrifying way possible. I spent the rest of the night pacing the floor, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. How could Imogen do this to me? How could Quentin betray me in such a despicable way? I felt a mix of emotions: anger, disbelief, betrayal, and a deep, crushing sadness. When Imogen finally returned from her girls' trip, I was waiting for her. I tried to act normal, to hide the turmoil that was raging inside me, but it was no use. She could see it in my eyes. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice cautious. "We need to talk," I said, my voice flat. "About you and Quentin." Her face paled. "What are you talking about?" she stammered. "Don't play dumb with me, Imogen," I said, my voice rising. "I know about the affair. I know about you and Quentin." She burst into tears. "It's not what you think," she sobbed. "It just happened. It was a mistake." "A mistake," I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You've been sleeping with my brother for months and you call it a mistake. How could you do this to me, Imogen? How could you betray me like this? She didn't have an answer. She just stood there crying and shaking her head. I turned to Quentin. I called him and told him to come over. He arrived, looking sheepish and avoiding my gaze. Alaric, he started to say, but I cut him off. Don't say a word, Quentin, I said, my voice trembling with rage. I don't want to hear your excuses. You've betrayed me in the worst possible way. You're no longer my brother. You're nothing to me. I told them both to get out of my house. I couldn't bear to look at them any longer. They left without a word, their faces etched with shame and regret. But their regret was nothing compared to the pain I was feeling. I felt like my world had been shattered, my heart ripped out of my chest. The days that followed were a blur of anger, sadness, and sleepless nights. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't think straight. I spent hours staring at the walls, trying to understand how my life had come to this. I filed for divorce, of course. There was no way I could stay married to Imogen after what she'd done. I also cut off all contact with Quentin. I couldn't forgive him for his betrayal. He'd not only slept with my wife, but he'd also destroyed our brotherly bond, a bond that I thought was unbreakable. As I tried to pick up the pieces of my shattered life, I knew I couldn't let Imogen and Quentin get away with what they'd done. I needed to make them pay, not just for the pain they'd caused me, but also for the disrespect they'd shown to our marriage and our family. I started by gathering evidence. I hired a private investigator to track their movements and document their affair. I wanted to have concrete proof of their betrayal, not just for the divorce proceedings, but also for my own peace of mind. The investigator provided me with photos and videos of Imogen and Quentin together holding hands, kissing, entering hotels. It was sickening to see, but it also fueled my determination to make them pay. Next, I started looking into their finances. I knew that Imogen had been secretly funneling money into a separate account, presumably to prepare for her new life with Quentin. I wanted to expose her financial infidelity and make sure she didn't get away with stealing from me. I discovered that Quentin had also been using his position at his company to engage in some shady dealings. He'd been embezzling funds and accepting kickbacks from suppliers. I gathered evidence of his illegal activities and prepared to report him to the authorities. As I plotted my revenge, I realized that I needed to be careful. I couldn't let my anger consume me and drive me to do something that I would regret. I wanted to make them pay, but I wanted to do it in a way that was calculated, strategic, and ultimately satisfying. I decided to start by exposing their affair to their families and friends. I sent anonymous letters and emails to everyone they knew, detailing their betrayal and providing the evidence I had gathered. The reaction was swift and brutal. Imogen was ostracized by her friends and family. Her parents were devastated by her actions, and her sister refused to speak to her. She was shunned at work and eventually forced to resign. Her reputation was ruined, and her life was in shambles. Quentin fared even worse. His wife, upon learning of his affair with Imogen, filed for divorce and took him for everything he had. His company fired him, and he faced criminal charges for his embezzlement and kickbacks. He was facing a long prison sentence and the complete destruction of his life. As I watched their lives crumble around them, I felt a sense of satisfaction. They had betrayed me, and now they were paying the price. But as the dust settled, I realized that my revenge had come at a cost. I had spent so much time and energy plotting against them that I had neglected my own life. I was still angry and hurt, but I knew I couldn't let their actions define me. I needed to move on, to heal, and to rebuild my life. I started by focusing on my career. I threw myself into my work, determined to prove that I was still capable of success, despite the turmoil in my personal life. I also started seeing a therapist. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could help me process my emotions and develop healthy coping mechanisms. Therapy helped me to understand that I wasn't responsible for Imogen and Quentin's actions. Their betrayal was a reflection of their own character flaws, not a reflection of my worth as a person. As time went by, I started to heal. The pain of betrayal began to fade, replaced by a sense of resilience and self-worth. I realized that I was stronger than I thought, and that I could overcome any obstacle, no matter how difficult. I eventually started dating again. It was scary at first, but I knew I couldn't let my past experiences prevent me from finding love again. I met a wonderful woman named Esme, who was kind, compassionate, and understanding. She helped me to trust again, to open my heart, and to believe in the possibility of a happy future. Esme and I got married a year later. It was a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by our closest friends and family. As I stood at the altar looking into Esme's eyes, I knew that I had finally found happiness again. I had survived the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the revenge, and I had emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. But the story doesn't end there. A few years later, I received a letter from Quentin. He was in prison, serving a long sentence for his crimes. He wrote to apologize for his betrayal, to express his remorse for the pain he had caused me, and to ask for my forgiveness. I was torn. Part of me wanted to ignore his letter, to hold onto my anger and resentment, but another part of me knew that I couldn't move on completely until I had forgiven him. After much soul-searching, I decided to write back. I told Quentin that I forgave him, not for his sake, but for my own. I explained that I needed to release the anger and resentment that I had been carrying for so long, and that forgiveness was the only way to do that. I also told him that I hoped he would use his time in prison to reflect on his actions and to become a better person. I never heard from Quentin again, but I knew that I had done the right thing. Forgiveness had set me free, allowing me to move on with my life and to embrace the happiness that I deserved. As for Imogen, I never saw her again. I heard through mutual friends that she had moved to another state and was working as a waitress. Her life had taken a turn for the worse, and she was struggling to make ends meet. I didn't feel any satisfaction in her misfortune. I had moved on with my life, and I no longer cared about what happened to her. She was a chapter in my past, a painful reminder of the betrayal I had endured, but also a testament to my resilience and my ability to overcome adversity. Looking back on that dark chapter of my life, I realized that betrayal can be a catalyst for growth. It can force you to confront your vulnerabilities, to reevaluate your priorities, and to emerge stronger and more resilient than ever before. And while I would never wish betrayal on anyone, I am grateful for the lessons I learned and the person I became as a result. Life isn't always fair. Sometimes, the people we love the most betray us in the most unimaginable ways. But it's how we respond to that betrayal that defines us. We can choose to let it consume us, to hold on to our anger and resentment, or we can choose to forgive, to heal, and to move on with our lives. The choice is ours. And remember, even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. Hope for healing, hope for forgiveness, and hope for a brighter future. Never give up on hope and never stop believing in yourself. You are stronger than you think, and you can overcome anything that life throws your way. So that's my story. A story of betrayal, revenge, forgiveness, and ultimately, redemption. It's a story that I hope will resonate with you, and that will inspire you to face your own challenges with courage, resilience, and hope. Thank you for listening. Summary. I, Alaric, lived a seemingly perfect life in Denver with my wife, Imogen, until she shattered it by having an affair with my brother, Quentin. The discovery led to a painful divorce and the severing of ties with my brother. Fueled by anger, I meticulously planned my revenge, exposing their affair and illegal activities, leading to their social and financial ruin. However, the revenge left me feeling empty, prompting me to seek therapy and rebuild my life. I found love again with Esme and eventually forgave Quentin, finding peace and redemption. Imogen's life spiraled downward, but I no longer felt any satisfaction in her misfortune, having moved on to a happier chapter. The experience taught me the power of forgiveness and resilience, ultimately shaping me into a stronger person. The story serves as a testament to overcoming betrayal and finding hope in the face of adversity. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my story. I hope it has resonated with you and perhaps offered a glimmer of hope or a moment of reflection. Remember, you are not alone and healing is always possible. Until next time, take care and stay strong.